Hello, everyone. Welcome to the ComicBase Livestream. This is episode number 213, if you can believe it. And today we'll be talking about the release of ComicBase 25.7 or version 2025, version 25.7.0. I think it's like 4839 or some nonsense like that. And also getting into the latest soap opera of the Diamond distribution wars. Get also a little bit of behind the scenes information about some of the other players and how ComicBase will be working with them, and also answering any questions we can for you folks. With all that said, this might be on the short side as a live stream. Let's hope, because it's a hugely hot summer day, and I wouldn't mind going out and have a beer after this darn thing's over with. But anyway, please put questions in the chat if you would to @ComicBase TV. That helps me find them. But before we get kicked off here, and welcome everyone to the show, I want to say hi. Our admins in the house, Mr. Gregory Hecht, or Viejo's first to the comments. Howdy all from gorgeous cotton ball clouds and pure blue skies, 81 and 55. What? This is gorgeous, man. That's beautiful from Minneapolis. Well done. And the State Fair opens tomorrow. If you guys have not been to the Minnesota State Fair, there's a handful of state fairs in the country that are worth actually traveling to go see. Like, if you're ever taking a road trip across America to make a point of seeing them, Minnesota's one, and I would say Texas is definitely another. Unfortunately, I cannot brag the same way about the Tennessee State Fair. It's a whole lot of nothing, but the Minnesota one is a truly great one. But definitely, that's good times. Mike Beam in the house from the Pacific Northwest. Also looks like everyone's having lovely weather out there. Greg Hecht is mentioned also in the house. Jitsi Comics, I believe, also from Pacific Northwest here. Fall times in Toledo. What is everyone temperate and we're rocking like 100 degrees out here in Tennessee? I don't get it. Dear Libby. All right, now I'm feeling better. Mid-90s in Roseville, California. Chris Praisall out in Philly, 72 degrees, also beautiful. 86 out in Northeast Florida. Scruffy says hi from Syracuse, New York. And Ed joins us from Canada. And the New York State Fair joins today for 13 days. That's terrific. I've not been to that one. Is it a good one? I hope so. Anyway, let's get down to business here. So you guys, if you've been following current events, you might know that most of our attention these days is on Metropolis, aka the next major version of ComicBase. We forked off the code from ComicBase 2025 and ComicBase what will probably be 2026 a while back, and we've been furiously working on that one. I think we passed build 1500 on the latter effort some time ago. But then you say, well, wait a minute, there's a brand new release of ComicBase 2025. What is this about? What madness is this, you say? Yes, this is ComicBase 25.7, because this is one of those original have to be able to walk and chew bubblegum at the same kind of things for us as a company, because even though the brave testers and other folks like that, and certainly our heads are all involved with building the brand new thing, we also have to make sure that anyone who's running the actual current thing is having all their needs met, and that we squash any bugs that have crept up over the ways, dealt with any new things that are happening in the world of distribution and content and so forth, and keep all that effort going. So, like I say, even though most of our major efforts for the last quarter have been focused elsewhere, we did post our big quarterly roll-up of everything that's new, fixed, minor tweaks, improvements, etc. Ever since ComicBase 25.6, which we did very early in the year. That one is the one that introduced the newsstand variants. And those ones have largely been populated at this point, all 48,000 or so, I want to say. Of the newsstand variations of different things. That was the main thing that happened with ComicBase 25.6. Since then, ComicBase 25.7 is, again, the big quarterly roll-up. This is the one that we put this out as a release for everybody in the user group. So if you want to download this next week's update, it's going to make you download the new program first. And the reason we have to do this is because at a certain point, we need to kind of get everybody on the same page. So even though we're releasing new versions of ComicBase pretty much all the time, if you look at the interim updates, we have new builds of both current version and new versions, sometimes several times a day, with little things that have been going on. We save the quarterly updates for the big changes, just the things that it's just really important to get everybody in the same place at the same time. And one thing that broke loose on us a couple weeks ago which affected the old versions of ComicBase, depending on how old your old version of ComicBase was, is there was a sketchbook from somebody that just used an unconventional numbering format, which just due to freaky things, newer versions of ComicBase could handle, but if you still had the original version of ComicBase 25.6, it would throw an error on you and the update wouldn't complete. So that kind of forced our hand, and it said, well, we were thinking of just letting ComicBase 2025 drift off into the sunset on its own, but instead we decided, nope, it's time to put out one to get everybody who's in the 25 cycle onto the same software at once, so that we don't need to worry about just lone stragglers who are still facing weird little technical issues and stuff like that when we solved the problem months ago maybe, but it was in an interim release that not everyone got. So depending on what your preferences say, if you go to setup in ComicBase and go to preferences, there's an option there where you check for updates, where you can check off whether you want to check for interim releases or not. Now, all of us here in the house here, and I'll go ahead and show this one, we tend to keep this one on yes. If there's something new that we've done, we want the new code, but for reasons that make a lot of sense if you're not crazy. There's the thought that, like, you don't want to stress everybody out by pushing new software on them every 3.5 seconds, and so we try to split, square the circle on that one a little bit by allowing that, okay, if you've got check for interim updates, chosen, and if you have ComicBase set to say check for updates every time you open the database, you'll see every little thing that we do as we're going along and doing little tweaks to the program. But about once a quarter, it's very important to get everybody on the same page, just so we're not supporting things again that we fixed months ago, or the new features that were added months ago. So just it takes a lot of work off of our support team and everyone else if we just catch everybody up. And that's what the big number of versions are about. The 25.6 is the 25.7 and so forth. And so it rolls up all these little changes we've been doing. So whether or not you had check for interim updates checked or not, next time you go to say check for updates, and the way you get the new version, it's very simple. You just go under internet and just say check for updates, or you'll get, when you go to the next content update, you'll say, hey, there's a new version 25.7 out there. Grab it now. Only takes a minute to do. It'll update your program right in place, and then you'll be completely current with the latest and greatest with the ComicBase 2025 series. And again, as we look forward to the release of the next major version of ComicBase, which will be coming up, we're targeting end of summer on that one. So that one is another one to look forward to. But in the meantime, there's also all sorts of good stuff that's in ComicBase 25.7, where, so if you haven't been updating, for the last couple months, some of the basics are, first of all, start with just content. We're well over 1.3 million comic books, 1.1 million covers. Actually, we're about halfway between that and the next big, decimal version of that. So I think I think it's like 1.37 million comics now, and I forget the actual number of covers, but if you look at the main site of comicbase.com, we add about 2,000 covers every single week these days. It's absolutely insane how fast the data is pouring in. Same thing goes for new comic books, and we also push probably an average of about 10,000 price and issue changes every single week. So if you haven't been getting those, it's amazing how quickly your stuff is getting outdated. So you do want to keep up with that every week. And make sure you're downloading all the updates. But like I say, before you update the latest one, you have to make sure you're on the current version of the program. So go ahead and take a moment, say internet, check for updates, download ComicBase 25.7, and everything should be sunny for you. We're pushing this week's update tomorrow, so look for that one. Other things that are happening. This isn't a big feature release for us because, like I say, most of our feature effort is being directed elsewhere right now. But some things that it's kind of like a preview of some of the things you'll be seeing in the next major version of ComicBase, which you can get now. Title searching faster than ever before. We've done some tweaks to that one to make it really, really very quick. We've added lots of places in the program where it's just very fast all around in terms of its database handling and how it handles lists, which, if you might see in the program, are basically everywhere. Everything from the main ComicBase views to every time you choose from conditions or whatever else. All that stuff is also much improved from 25.6. We've added the ability now, there are certain fields in the database that are time-based, not just date-based. So, for instance, if you want to search for a field called last issue date modified, which is the last time you've made changes to a particular issue in the database, it used to be you could only say, show me things that are greater than after a certain date, which of course would be that date at midnight. Those dates now, if they respect dates times as part of what they're tracking, they'll let you actually search for the time as well. And when you search for them, when you go to find, you'll actually see for all those fields that you can put in not just a date, but also a time as well. So if I want to say, find me everything in my database I changed after 3 o'clock today, I can now do that. And the same thing goes for some of the custom fields and so forth. This one's very obscure, but very important if you're in the field, in the set of groups that this happens. We were just shocked to find out that there's a feature that Microsoft has rolled out called Windows Security Option. Go figure. But apparently what it was, it's a setting that you could do if you had Windows 11 and you set this thing the very second you launched in. I've never used a version of Windows that had this at all obvious in the interface, but apparently there are builds of it that you could get where you could turn on this thing, which basically would insist that you were in this really locked down mode the entire time you were using Windows, where it would only allow signed drivers, it would only allow things that had gone through the Windows Store and so forth. And it was meant for people who just worried to death that malware might somehow get onto their computer. You had the option of enabling this mode. And the weird thing is, if you ever turned it off, it could never be enabled again. So again, weird feature. And again, very hidden, very select markets had this. But if you were one of the people who did have this on, one of the things that goofed you up at some certain point is the report engine that we use is called Crystal Report. It's the biggest report engine, basically used in the entire industry by everyone large, everything from Microsoft Office on down. But apparently in their various service packs, which is their big roll-ups, they had a release or 2 or 7 that they didn't do what's called signing their executables. In other words, they didn't cryptographically, as they're putting their installer together, make sure that every single file had a cryptographic signature on it, which guarantees that it was unaltered from when it had been bundled up as part of the installer. And because of the way that they did this, and honestly, having dealt with Crystal Reports as installers more than any human should ever have to, they're oh gosh, how do you put this nicely? They're a bit of a dog's breakfast. So anyway, I'm not at all surprised that this would slip through the build process over at SAP, the parent company that runs Crystal Reports. But anyway, if the way this, in practical terms, this didn't matter to anything because no one was slipping malware into Crystal Reports. I mean, that wasn't a real thing. But if you had this horrible confluence of you were running one of their old service packs and you were also running this uber security option of Windows, you would try to install ComicBase, which uses Crystal Reports, and it would say, oh no, you can't install because we're trying to install the report engine for Crystal Reports, and that install is failing, and so you wouldn't be able to print from within ComicBase, and it would cause all sorts of trouble. So they eventually fixed this in another service pack. We updated our installer to use their new service pack. As far as I can tell, the only thing that they fixed in the entire time is they fixed the signing of their installer. There's like that and like one bug that no one would ever have known about. But if that happened to you, it should no longer happen to you, is I guess what it all comes down to. So and by the way, if you were in that select group of folks who had that happen to you, please chat, sound off in the chat, make us feel like all this grief was worth it. So anyway, if Brian Price says, oh LOL, Pete loves Crystal Reports. Oh well, let's just say we've had history. It's I don't know what to say. It's Crystal Reports does something phenomenal that no one else does. Well, no, otherwise there's no way we would put up with them if there was another program that does what it does as well, in any sort of way. Which isn't to say that Crystal Reports isn't absolutely gosh, special to work with at times. So great news. We can print amazing reports, labels, etc. We can export them to a million formats. We can save them as PDFs. We can do all these heavy duty reporting things you might ever want to do with data, which is fantastic. And we really do appreciate this. It's an incredible suite of software. But wow, could it be smoother? So anyway, Ed says, hey, Pete, curious how exactly new weekly comic books are added on to your end to ComicBase. Are they added manually one at a time for publisher distributors provide a list to you? I am going to be getting into that. Thank you so much for asking. But yeah, we'll be covering that in some delicious amount of detail just a little bit later on. Xanadu Comics is celebrating 50 years of selling comic books this month. Hey, congratulations! I think I have comic book blood ink in my blood. I am absolutely certain of that, Perry. Anyway, hey, Perry Plush, congratulations, man. All right, and someone in the chat here, I think it's Greg, says, as of last week's content, there are 1,145,322 covers in the archive edition. Thank you for that, and more coming all the time. It's like I say, it's a couple. We're averaging about 2,000 a week, although lately we've been averaging much higher. Sometimes I want to say a couple, 3 weeks ago, we pushed something like 12,000 new covers in 1 week's process, and it caused all manner of trouble on our servers because operations were timing out just trying to update 12,000 thumbnails on our back end. Actually, it's not 12,000 thumbnails. It's 12,000 thumbnails in 8 different sizes on our back end at once, and so it was special. Anyway, so we've done that. The other thing I'll say is just hundreds of small improvements and bug fixes. In trying to go through the list of things that's part of 25.7, which honestly, if this was a Microsoft release, we would just sit there and say, stability improvements and performance enhancements and call it a day. I mean, it would be like one of those knowledge base articles that just kind of says, and gobbledygook, it's better. And honestly, this is as close as I've ever come to a release where that's kind of the way I would say what's new in 25.7 is it is a roll-up release. It's everything new that we've done. Some things, make things faster. Some things, solve a couple of big problems for a very select number of people. But really what happens is lots and lots of little tweaks that you if you've been downloading the interim releases all along, you've already got. But it was a time to make it so that everyone was on the same page. And that's what this thing really is it's a roll-up release. So anyway, once again, if to get this, just go internet, check for updates, and download the software. It should only take about a minute, and you should be good to go, and then you'll be ready for everything that follows. All right, so that is that part of things. Let me just do a quick check of things. Oh my God. Brad Stewart says, episode number 213. How coincidental. That's the number of variants I just created for a new number 1 /sarcasm. All right. So I think we are pretty good with that one. ComicBase TV, hot there is the revenge of Al Gore. I don't. Yeah, that's right. He was a Tennessee senator, wasn't he? I don't know. Does he still live in Tennessee? I don't know. We don't bump into each other at the mini golf as much anymore. So I don't know. All right. So onward to other things. So fabulous news in the world of comic books. If you've been following the saga of Diamond Comic Distribution, I was saying to Greg before the show, this is as bad as I've ever seen a bankruptcy go for anybody anywhere ever. This is an absolute debacle. And when last we saw it, Diamond having sold off its operations to two different folks. The UK folks got bought up by one set of folks, and then the US operations got bought up by another set of folks. There's various companies and sub companies involved and so forth. Feel free to read the whole Bleeding Cool articles on this thing. They have a whole section on their site devoted to nothing but Diamond bankruptcy news now, which I think probably has 50 or 60 articles at this point, following the various ups and downs of the whole thing. But you would think that months ago that Diamond, having sold out to, in the United States, Ad Populum, a group of I don't know what you call them. That's distributors, but basically a coalition group, which they have everything from Sparkle Pop to whatever else in their suite of companies and so forth. They bought out the U.S. operations of Diamond Comics Distribution back in May, I believe. And you'd think at that point that Steve Jeppy and company, riding off to the sunset, play with the grandchildren. I believe he's still an owner of the Baltimore Orioles, but just having fun and living the best life you could, and and going on to the next adventure. But no, apparently there's no rest for anybody involved in this whole thing, because many loose ends were left in the whole scheme of things of this bankruptcy. Part of it is apparently some of the loose ends that were left where no one seems to be filing financial reports with the courts on a timely basis, leaving the entire proceeds is threatening to slide between a Chapter 11 and a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. The new owners seem to be having a very hard time actually shipping comic books, which is to say that, they announced a month or two ago that, oh yeah, all those orders that we had in for all the Marvel and other product that we had going for them, yeah, we won't be shipping any of those to you, leading us to have to very quickly scramble and activate our Penguin Random House accounts. So I'm starting to get lots and lots of little books all the time, packages in the mail all the time, more or less constantly, with Marvel and DC quickie orders. The larger packages are starting to show up as well, with more of the bulk of our orders. But we basically had to divert stuff that was in flight basically from one publisher to another, because Diamond, for all practical purposes, as far as we could tell, is no longer effectively a U.S. comic book distributor. I don't know what they're doing anymore, but I hope they're doing something. But another problem that's happening is apparently Diamond was holding on to the consignment inventory of a dozen or so publishers, including I think about $3 million worth of Image Comics inventory, as well as millions of bucks worth of other people's stuff. And the new owners, there was a great deal of, I want to be careful about what I'm saying here. The people who had their consignment inventory held by Diamond in their warehouses were very much of the opinion of like, hey, we don't do business with you anymore. Could you either send it along to the new people like Penguin Random House or Lunar? We'd like to have them deal with it now, because that's where we're doing our business. Or if you're not going to do that, could we have our stuff back, please? And the response they were getting back was, no, you may not have your stuff back. Oh, by the way, we're selling it and we're not going to be paying you. But it was very unclear as to who was even giving them that message. Now, according to at least the filings that have come out in court, it's said that the people who are doing the selling off at this point are Ad Populum, aka, or actually specifically a subsidiary of theirs called Sparkle Pop. But and it was all being done to satisfy the judgments, not the judgments, but satisfy the debts that were owed by Diamond to the banks that were involved in the whole thing, particularly J.P. Morgan Chase. Now, and I'm getting stage directions here that Greg Hecht has thoughts on the whole thing. If you could put them in the chat to me, I'll certainly try to clarify as well as I can. But anyway, very, very murky situation. And originally this was all going to go down, they were going to have a hearing on it, because the publishers were not particularly thrilled with this whole, idea. And a lot of them got together, Titan, etc., to file a motion with the court to say, please, can you stop them from selling our stuff, or can we have it back or something? And they were going to have their hearing on this thing. It was going to be originally the first day of Comic-Con. That got moved back slightly, and they finally just had the official hearing on the matter just a couple days ago, I believe. And the answer on that one was kind of, it was a typical murky ruling on the whole thing. Was hang on, and we'll go ahead and have a further hearing on this one in I believe 40 days from now. Is it September 30th was when we'll do it. Greg says, Sparkle Pop wasn't selling to satisfy the Diamond Bank loan. They were selling for themselves to get the money for themselves. The Diamond Estate wants to sell them to satisfy the bank loan. Fair enough. Thank you for the clarification on that one, because if there's anything that this situation isn't, it's clear. I would say in particular, how the hell does, because we've reading over the distribution agreements and everything, at least from Magma, who put theirs out there on Scribed, so you could actually read the original contract thing. honestly, through my reading of the whole thing, they should have every right in the world, because they're not, their inventory was basically being, held by Diamond for purposes of sale. It's no longer being sold by them. They should have the right to get their stuff back at the very least. So how their stuff is being kind of like, held hostage, I have no worldly idea right now. But held hostage, apparently it is still being, to the tune of some millions of dollars. Image is said to have come up with their own deal. It was said yesterday, reported as by Bleeding Cool, to get their own inventory pushed on. But that report also is being controverted, counteracted, whatever. Yeah, it's being cast into doubt by subsequent reporting. So anyway, if you guys love yourself some soap opera, this is definitely the one for you. I would encourage you definitely to follow the stuff on bleedingcool.com. Rich Johnston, once again, doing a decent job of trying to at least catch the play-by-play on the whole thing. Although I think we're going to need a roadmap and a chart to make sense of the overall thing. So good luck on that, guys. And for anyone in the comic industry, good luck on just keeping your bank balances, floating and your people employed while all this nonsense grinds to a halt. All right, so let's talk about distribution and what it means to comic-basey type stuff. So a couple of interesting things. One of them came up in the chat last week. We were asked, well, okay, you guys mentioned that we're having to suddenly throw in very quickly and do work with Penguin Random House, which, by the way, I can say nothing bad about Penguin Random House's stuff right now, with the exception of, my God, what I wouldn't do for a variant field in their data. So anyone at PRH listening, definitely do that. We got our first copy of, this is the Penguin Random House copy. This is their version of the Diamond catalog, considerably thinner, but it's what you would expect. It's every single thing that we're doing for the month. The actual data feed we get from them comes in the form, they is easily the most sophisticated of the operations that we've dealt with. Typically, the way that we will get information from the distributors is in the form of, it's called like a .csv file, which is a comma separated values file, or if you're like an old school, Excel ahead or whatever. But basically, it's a whole bunch of data separated by commas and so forth, where we can break it in and say, okay, field number 1 will be the stock ID number, field number 2 will be the alternate stock ID number, field number 3 will be the barcode, field number 4 will be what they call the title, all the way through about field 72, which include everything from like how many you have to order in order to get something. In Lunar's case, we get things like how many cartons are there in a given box, how much does a carton weigh. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff, and it varies by distributor. Unfortunately, the standards wildly different between one and the other, and so we had over time worked out a lot of code that was there to chew through the Diamond order form, deal with all the weirdnesses of how Diamond would code thing and the category codes that they would do and so forth, and map that onto categories in, say, ComicBase and so forth, matching up variants and other things like that. So we could, associate, okay, if you say that, Diamond stock code blah, 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 blah for, Marvel's, third series, 3A, that means, okay, that's issue 3/A, whatever else, and who did the variant cover and blah, blah, blah. We could turn that into something that would then be importable into ComicBase, which then, after we clean it up and annotate it and add in other information that we track, gets pushed out to you in your weekly update. So when everything's working right, what would happen is about 3 months before a book would hit the streets, we would get information through what's called the solicitation from the different distributors. So whether Diamond, Lunar, and now Penguin Random House, we would get access to these sheets, which we then could suck into our mechanics. And let me see if we can do the debut of. Let me see if I can get it here, guys. We're going for the debut of the Dodger Cam. There he is. First appearance on camera, and there he goes. How I have waited for that very moment for so long. Yes, we finally purposed the overhead camera here, which I'm planning on doing for close-up shots of things like the office and whatnot, but now you actually get to see like one end of my office over there. So anyway, and we finally captured Dodger on film. So yes, far out Woodger. All right, so there you go. Now I expect you guys like and subscribe. This is the best this is ever going to get. All right, but by the way, the Dodger camera powered by. Oh, and here comes the rain. There we go. That's why I was getting excited. So this is the remote control, which covers the PTZ camera on this one. But one of the options it has over here is it has an animal button. So if I did lock onto him, it's actually meant to follow him around as he moves. So yeah, something to look forward to in the future. But the real purpose of this camera, honestly, is so that I can actually put things on my desk and we can zoom down and show how different actions happen, whether it's a barcode scanner or a mobile or whatnot. All right. Anyway, with all that said, thank you for the guest spot there, Dodger. And yes, Dodger is a handsome fellow. If you guys, I'll tell you all this stuff later. Okay, so but anyway, so we get the information on new comic books releases and so forth. They're about 3 months ahead of time, and when we're on our game, we get that stuff sucked into our machinery pretty quickly. Now, for Diamond, we had this thing down really, really well, and so regularly, at least 2 months ahead of time, anything that would move through Diamond, which used to be everything, would get into the system. But then, of course, as distribution fell apart, Lunar became one of the people we had doing there, which of course involves reading a whole brand new format and brand new people who've been doing the editing on their side, and they include some things, they don't include other things, they tend to write up things in a certain way. So our software's trying to parse through what they're doing and figure all the quirks of how everyone enters everything. It becomes more and more work for not just on a code basis, but also for the editors to be able to chew through that stuff and try to get it into the system. Now, enter, just right as we're preparing for Comic-Con, enter suddenly Diamond collapsing and us having to run over to Penguin Random House. So now we have a third, group in the system. I mean, in a way, we don't have to worry about Diamond anymore because nothing's moving through Diamond anymore. Unfortunately, that was the one that we had down to a science. Now, instead, now we have to work up a brand new set of things that suck in data from Penguin Random House, which has, I'm going to say, a lot of good and a few bad things in terms of their data. On the good side of things, by far the most sophisticated company from an IT standpoint for dealing with them. They have actual APIs. There's a term programmers use called, it stands for Application Programming Interfaces. But basically, it's ways that not just through like sucking down text files, but we can actually issue, like code calls through the web and such to say, hey, we would like information on this particular stock item. Give me everything you've got on this one, or give me all the stock items you've got between this date and that date. And it would actually kick us back data in a digestible format in theory. Now, granted, all subject to lots and lots of massaging. One of the things that was a little bit annoying was when you look at their catalog and you say, looking at the description here of, say, Stranger Things, Dungeons and Dragons, you might notice these crazy little things in here called paragraph breaks. Unfortunately, those things, when they decided they were going to put together data files for public consumption, they thought, paragraph schmaragraph, what if we just ran all the sentences right together on the whole thing and then have the whole thing be, bullet pointed list, whatever it is, just have it become one big glob of text, completely unburdened by punctuation marks and spacing that has been. Anyway, that's how we get the stuff. We, of course, because we have self-respect, don't want to deliver it that way to you guys. And so we have to then go and redo the editing work that the people over at Penguin Random House apparently had to do once upon a time and then threw away. We also have to spend a fair amount of time. Oh, and yes, he's, of course, Dodgers know. Let me see if I can zoom this in a little bit tighter on my desk here. There we go. All right, so, all right. Once again, there's my boy. And ignore all the cables they're piling there right next to his tail here, because I just got back from a trip and I was going to reorganize my laptop bag, and so everything's laying on the floor in preparation for that. But Dodger, you want to say hi? Up there. All right. Anyway, that is the ComicBase doggo. He is a Bernese Mountain Dog, and he's a good boy. Right? Yes. All right. Anyway, back to the show. So we've had to do a lot of work, particularly the last couple weeks, on Penguin Random House. We basically took a slightly different take on this one. Typically, we are given a kind of separated values file. It's kind of like an Excel file that we would suck in and run line by line until it was done. This time, we actually done is we wrote a bulk importer that sucks in their data as we get it, just in its entirety, unprocessed and raw, into our backend database, just so we've got the data forever. We don't have to keep on looking for text files to load in one by one. And then on our end, because we're becoming more sophisticated ourselves, our editors now go and say, like, hey, let's process the Penguin books from between the July solicitation through the August, or whatever else. Pick the dates, pick only the stuff that hasn't been mapped yet to the ComicBase stuff, etc. And then we have a control console for them that's full of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lines of code and more every day to try to work out all the weird little tweaks and all the weirdnesses of how people list things and map them together. And so, for instance, if we see that we've got a new thing called Spider-Man Dark Designs, we have to figure out, okay, it's labeled number 1, but was that a book 1, which is summarizing the theory of Spider-Man Dark Design? Is it really issue number 1 of a new series? Is it a graphic novel? Is it a book? And so forth. And so we're using all these keys, clues in the code to try to figure out how to properly classify this for ComicBase and not do every damn thing by hand. Because typically in a given month, we've got about 1,200 items in each of these forms, whether it's from Lunar or Penguin or anybody else to get through. And it is stupidly time consuming to get through all this stuff. And this is before we even get the books and see the stuff and order it and do all the regular work that we normally do. Because what happens after all this is we'll put the stuff in there, and then it'll go as part of the updates. But then as soon as we also order 1 each of all the major books. And so when we get it, we actually look at the physical book and we say, oh yeah, okay, this was supposed to be the De Matteo cover. It turns out it was really, David Finch, and so, we have to, change it up and put that up as a correction into our own data. That comes out as part of the weekly update as well. We get to scan the real cover. We're not just dealing at that point with the preliminary art, and we get to pull a high-res scan of the real cover for that sort of thing. And then we incorporate that also with all the submissions that you guys give us, because no matter how much we spend on things, I'm not going to buy 25 copies of Red Sonja number 4 just in order to get the one, a one better copy of the 1 in 25 cover. It's not going to happen, because we spend thousands on comic books every month, but we can't spend tens of thousands on comic books every month, because even though we sell the books on the back end through Atomic Avenue, we are not actually a comic store of that sort. It's we don't have a way you can walk up here and hang out and play D&D on the weekends and browse with your buddies and buy 50 copies of the 1 issue of Spider-Man in order to so we could have the 1 special cover. So in a case like that, we'll typically have the stock art that they give us as part of the solicitation of what that'll be, but sometimes we don't even have that. Sometimes it's TBD, to be designated, or to be decided. I've never heard of a full thing of what the D in TBD was supposed to be for, but it basically means it ain't there yet. It's like a blank spot where the real cover will be someday. But anyway, typically we are waiting at that point for one of you folks who did get a hold of the real cover by hook or by crook to send it on to us, in which case that goes out as part of the weekly update as well. Which, if you ever wondered why it is that we're pushing down 2,000 new covers every week, or tens of thousands of price and item changes every week, that's why, because there is a ton of information flowing through the system. And it's our job to try to keep on top of it as best we can. Plus, we also have to roll in all the pricing activity that's going on. There's about 2.1 million price points that we look at every single week, where we do a rolling average of all the books in the database and say, well, what's everything doing? And anything that's changed comes out as part of that update. So yeah, there's a lot going on, and it's a full-time job on the whole thing. We've been putting a lot of muscle into in the last week or so to try to make this as efficient as possible. This last year, the real theme has been efficiency. So you've noticed that the program itself has gotten far faster, and certain of the operations that we deal with, particularly around corrections, far faster than ever before. Because if we weren't, we'd just be snowed under all the data that's going on. So what we're doing right now is we're trying to give some love, in particular, to that initial acquisition thing. And I checked with the content guys right before the show, And we just, despite the fact that we didn't even have any of the Penguin import stuff working until I believe last Monday. It was, we had to wait till we got back from Comic-Con to even start working on it. But I understand that as of right now, we're just about caught up with everything Penguin-wise. So you guys are going to see a lot of stuff coming down the pipe in this last set of updates. Particularly, I'm going to say lots of Marvel stuff, but also look for a lot of manga, a lot of light novels, a lot of things like that sometimes didn't get as much love as they should have in the past. And so trade paperback collections, omnibuses, I know it's been like a very much an all hands kind of approach. So I've gotten involved in a lot of this as well. So look for a lot of that stuff coming up this next time out. All right, let's see here. Department of Comics says, give ChatGPT a picture of Dodger and they'll let you know what he would look like as a human. That's actually pretty funny. Let's see. Does ChatGPT have the dogs come out looking like Mickey Mouse's pal Goofy? I doubt it. So the D is to be determined in TBD. All right, let's see here. And then lots of talk about ChatGPT versions of Dodgers right now. All right, so I think that's everything I wanted to say about the content process for now. And I got to admit, I do want to get back to that whole thing because, like I say, it's been kind of an all hands effort right now, and we do want to finish that out in time for tomorrow's update. So look for a lot of stuff to hit in this next one, a lot of new series, a lot of fill in the blanks, and as always, we certainly appreciate everything you guys send to us. But this next week's update should be a huge one, and we're looking forward to it. And don't forget to download ComicBase 25.7. You will need that one in order to get the new version. So I think that's about it for now. I'm going to just do a quick set of updates. By the way, if this is the sort of thing that you like, please hit the like and hit the subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that bell for notifications on the whole thing. We should be getting back into more of a building new stuff mode as opposed to just sort of getting on top of all the crazy stuff that's been piling up mode, which happens just every time we go to Comic-Con. But if I've actually cleared the desk behind me and everything, so we're just about back on top of our game, and we should be seeing some excellent things moving forward to. Once again, we are looking forward to shipping Metropolis, aka ComicBase 2026, at the end of the summer. So look for that quite shortly. But in the meantime, I think we have some neat things that you'll be seeing very shortly if you just, look for tomorrow's update and beyond. Anyway, so hit like and subscribe. Look for also, by the way, we have forums.comicbase.com, so you can both get support from your fellow users and chat with things like that, and also suggest topics for the live stream. And I believe we also still have links to the current ComicBase cover catalog, Andre's amazing project on that one, where if you just want to see what 1.1 million comic pictures look like when printed out, you can actually get that. But we'll have to also look for I need to get a hold of Andre and see where he's at on the whole thing. But I think that is about it. Anyway, thank you everyone. Hit the like and subscribe, and we will catch you all on the next one. And I'm off to have a beer. Take care. Bye-bye.